The following podcast may contain adult language and conversations revolving around situations not suitable for immature audiences. Spoilers and general political incorrectness can often be expected, so listener discretion is advised.
They must be destroyed on sight!
Okay, we're back, and we're on episode 61 now of They Must Be Destroyed on Sight, a movie podcast. I'm your host, Lee Russell, and I'm joined by my co-host, Daniel Harper. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. I'm trying to be a little bit more sober than I was for our 2001 discussion, because I've discovered I can be tired while we record, or I can be drunk while we record, but both, it doesn't work well for me. Let's just put it that way. I can tell in my voice when I'm, and in the amount that I talk. I definitely talk way too much and don't say anything. So I apologize to everyone who listens to me when I'm in that state.
Well, to be fair, I don't think I saw anyone criticize anything you had to say. So we do
scared of me.
Maybe the beard is intimidating. So we are going to be doing a movie a little later on here that was suggested by our friend Jack Graham, and it is Stridulum, also known as The Visitor, from 1979. That should be fun, but we do have a few comments here to get through, so we're going to look into those really quick. We're going to save our what we've been watching and stuff like that for a little intermission episode we're going to be recording after this, because Daniel has to go away next week. Let's do a little mini episode to fill in, keep you fiends satiated for another week.
Keep the horde satisfied until we can actually get to another full episode. Because I know people are disappointed if we don't put out at least one episode a week.
Yeah, at least one 3-hour episode a week. There's
people just don't know how to act anymore.
Yeah, our last episode for 2001: Space Odyssey was just about as long as the movie is itself. But we do have some comments pertaining to 2001, of course. One comment here from Stuart Balk, and this is sort of the theme of the comments for the most part for 2001, and I think we addressed this during the actual talk about 2001, how it is kind of slow and boring. But my friend Stuart Balk from Midnight Movie Cowboy said, to him, 2001 is as boring as fuck. I've grown to seriously dislike it over the years. 2010 is a lot more mainstream, has some cool stuff in it, but overall, meh. And I can understand that criticism.
I mean, I agree. 2010 is much, much more mainstream, i.e. worse. I mean, it really is just like, yes, I agree. We described the same film. I do think that 2001... Yeah, you do have to kind of be in that mindset to watch it. It's not something I'm going to sit down and go, oh yeah, it's Saturday afternoon, I've got some buddies coming over, let's throw on, a meditation on the existence of humanity. Yeah. No, that's not, it's a very particular kind of movie. I mean, it's not something that you're necessarily going to just throw on every couple of weeks or every few months or whatever. I mean, it's something it is a meditation, and so it is meant to be approached that way. So, it's also one that I would really love to see on the big screen. I think the big screen would really make that film sing in a way that it doesn't necessarily, especially if you've only seen it on, like an old VHS copy, which is the only way I'd ever seen it until last week. So, I mean, I take the criticism of the film, and I don't, it's not even something you can argue. Like, he thinks it's boring. That's fine. I get it. Not much happens in 2001. It's not about what happens. It's about all the other stuff. And I think we kind of covered that last week. But, I mean, I do appreciate that perspective. I just disagree with it,
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'll say this. I mean, it's not a movie I'm going to watch not even every week or a month or something like that. Like you said, it's something you seriously have to put yourself in the frame of mind to sit down and actually watch. Like, you've actually dedicated... Here's a 2.5-hour block of my time that I'm going to sit down and watch this and enjoy it. That's the way it is for me. Like I said, I used to see bits and pieces of it as a kid, and then when I finally first watched it all the way through, since then it's only been maybe half a dozen times that I've ever watched it since then. So, it's not something I can go back to every day. Like, I could watch like The Big Lebowski every fucking day or something like that, but I can't do it for 2001.
It's also the kind of film that I think doesn't, I mean, and this goes back to the theatrical thing. I think that it isn't a film that rewards the like two-screen experience. Like, I'm like playing on my phone and I'm trying to watch 2001. And it kind of rewards you for sitting down and really just watching it, and really observing every shot and the way it's composed. I mean, it is a tone poem. And if you're kind of distracted, I'm eating dinner or I'm having some whiskey or I'm, whatever, it's not necessarily, like the way that film is meant to be watched. And again, it is what it is,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. He did make a good suggestion, though, for our Spaghetti Western series. He wants to see us do Sabata, which was, I think it was a 3-film series. There was 2 films with Lee Van Cleef, sort of playing a bit off his character in For a Few Dollars More, the Colonel Mortimer character. Although more of a super spy version of that to some degree. And then there was the middle film in the series was actually played by Yul Brynner, played the title character of all people. So, yeah, it's a weird one. I tell you, I think it was one of those things.
And then he went on to do Westworld. Like that was the.
I can't remember which came first, Westworld or this. Brynner was doing a bunch of different westerns and stuff at that point. I think this was before Westworld. I'm pretty sure it was. Yeah, Westworld was what, 70 something.
Yeah, mid-70s, something like that.
Yeah. Sabata's one I'm thinking we'll add on there, Stuart, because it's been a long time since I've seen the first one, so we might stick that on.
I've never seen them. I don't know them at all, so totally. I mean, you pick titles, I'll watch them, no question. I'm a big spaghetti western person, but I just haven't watched a lot of them, so I'm definitely I'm down. Let's go. I'm ready. Can we do it? Let's do it right now. Fuck Stridulum. Who cares?
Yeah. Friend Mike Murphy from the Badass Boobs and Body Counts podcast said, good episode, guys. He personally could never make it through 2001 himself. Too boring for him. So he never bothered with the sequel. He said about the van, that's all Mark's doing, apparently. We also have Malibu High, Van Nuys Boulevard, the Pom Pom Girls, and a bunch of other shit in which Mark wants to relive his past through, apparently.
Wasn't that the genesis of our sex comedy series? I was like, hey, let's watch a bunch of the 80s comedies I saw when I was a kid.
Yeah, pretty much the same thing. Although Malibu High is a very different movie. That doesn't even rate as a sex comedy. That's one of those films that they tried to stick it into the series, but basically they just lied to the general public, moviegoers, about what it was.
I don't know that one, so I'll have to watch it sometime.
You really don't have to. He said, regarding your spaghetti western run, please do Django. Well, like we said in the last episode, we definitely will be doing a big Django episode, so never fear there. He said, think about doing 4 of the Apocalypse. I was actually considering that one. That's Lucio Fulci directed spaghetti western, which does have some Fulci-esque elements in it, of course. And also think about doing the Call Me Trinity. He said the sequel to Django came out in 1987, and it's called Django Strikes Again. Yep, with Franco Nero. Coincidentally, this is sort of odd. I interviewed Rodrigo Obregon yesterday for an upcoming episode of BBNBC, and we talked mostly about Andy Sedaris. I spoke to the guy for over an hour. He's in Django Strikes Again. Again, sort of odd that it came back around to this. Yeah, we sort of tread in the same waters there, Mike. There's always going to be some similarity, I think, between a lot of the stuff we do.
Well, we kind of all listen to each other and stuff, and so ultimately, yeah, there's some carryover and some, oh yeah, we're all, we're all interested in the same sorts of things, and therefore, some actors cross over, like it's a thing. No, yeah. But it's really nice. I always like listening to interviews with actors who have just been in a bunch of stuff, who are just kind of jobbing actors for years, and just kind of, oh yeah, I worked with so and so. I worked with Bergman in 1972. I was a spear carrier.
Yeah, and BB&BC, every once in a while they do have interviews on there, and they do a really good job with them too. So I'll be looking forward to hearing that episode. On our YouTube version of our video, we finally got a comment again after quite a cold spell, but it was just Riz2336 saying, "I don't really like 2001: A Space Odyssey. Thought it was kind of boring," and then he put a question mark. afterwards. So I'm not sure if he was sure if it was boring, or he was asking me if it was boring, or I don't know. But thanks anyway for the comment.
It definitely needed more laser blasts. It really needed.
It needed at least one shot of a scantily clad Barbarella type floating around. Yeah.
If Bowman and Poole had been scantily clad women, he probably would have watched it.
Yes, I mean, seeing 60s breast implants and zero gravity, yeah, that'd be awesome.
The opening sequence of Barbarella, but shot by Kubrick.
Yeah, there you go. Artful and tasteless. It'd be awesome. Jason Dennison says, how about Any Gun Can Play or Death Rides a Horse for the Spaghetti Western series? I'm not familiar if Any Gun Can Play, but Death Rides a Horse would be an interesting one to look at, just because that's one of those ones that's never really had a proper video release, at least not over here, as far as I can tell. It's always just shitty DVD copies. And so it's kind of gained a reputation as this like unheralded masterpiece that people just haven't seen the cleaned up version of it to really give it its due. So I think there's some decent prints of it though on YouTube now. So I do own it, but they're terrible fucking prints.
Well, really what we say is like, provide us with a decent print and we'll watch it.
Yeah,
that's the
send us movies. Send us movies. You got some old Criterion kicking around that you don't want. Just fucking send it to us. Why not?
Send us a movie. We'll put it on our list to possibly review. Like, come on. Like isn't that why we do podcasts? Is it why we're journalists? We get free shit for that. Isn't that just the way this works? I mean, aside from the tens of thousands of dollars for making on the podcast every week,
Yeah, I mean, that's the only reason Daniel's even here is because he makes $10,000 an episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like a penny a word that I speak and that I make.
I think that would be pretty close,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Lee makes 4 cents,
Yeah, pretty much.
Just go, yeah, I agree. Yeah, well,
Yeah. What do you think of this, Daniel? Yeah, okay. The episode's over, guys. Jack Graham says, I think you got 2010 down. It's an acceptably entertaining 90 minutes of bog standard, well-acted 80s sci-fi cinema, especially if you grew up in the 1980s and 90s and are a bit nostalgic for that style of movie, but not even in the same constellation as the original. And yeah, totally in agreement. I think we spelled that out pretty well when we reviewed it. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's funny when Outland is actually the better film by Peter Hyams.
Yeah.
Sean Connery vehicle from 1981, or the sequel to one of the greatest films ever made. Actually, the Sean Connery vehicle is probably the better film overall. Yeah,
Sean Connery vehicle that was just a remake.
Big ideas, but better film.
Yeah, just a remake of High Noon anyway. I mean,
yeah, no, it's totally that. I mean, I agree, but it does the High Noon formula pretty well. I mean, you gotta say it's actually a good High Noon remake.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's at least as good as the Magnificent Seven remaking Seven Samurai.
Yeah, I'd say it's pretty much on the same level. All right, well, thanks everyone for the comments. Of course, you can go to our Facebook group. They Must Be Destroyed on site on Facebook, and that's the best way to leave comments. So if you join up there and you want to give us comments, the fabulous comments we just had, or if you want to give us really lame comments, you can do that as well. You can give suggestions.
Better comments. All those comments sucked because they disagreed with me. Yeah.
Well, Jack Graham agreed with us.
He did agree with it. Well, he always agrees with us,
Yeah.
Well, usually, we'll say usually.
Well, you pay him $5,000 out of your weekly check.
Yeah, exactly. And then he puts positive comments on. That's what it does.
Yeah, he's like one of those guys who goes around IMDb and votes up movies and then puts 18 positive reviews under the user reviews.
He has a ton of sock puppets voting up Meet the Deedles. Look it up, kids.
Movies need only 3 things. Badasses.
You tell me who you want done, and I'll do the hell out of it.
A chick with drive who don't take no jive.
Boobs.
Do you know that the female breast, known to be the source of life since Eve, can be deadly weapons?
and body counts.
Body count. The mathematics of murder and menace.
The BB and BC podcast is your source for exploitation film discussion of B-movies. You can find the show on iTunes and Stitcher Radio by searching for BB and BC podcast. You can also listen to each episode directly from the show's website located at badassesboobsandbodycounts.com.
Let's go to work.
Clytus, I'm bored. What plaything can you offer me today?
An obscure body in the A.K.A. system, Your Majesty. The inhabitants refer to it as the planet Earth.
How peaceful it looks.
Most effective, Your Majesty. Will you destroy this Earth?
Destroy it utterly.
Send Rick and Danny in wool rocket Ajax.
So, just destroy it?
That's what Ming said. Don't you ever listen?
Well, there's no arguing with Ming.
Hail Ming. Wait! You see those transmissions on the Visua screen?
Crow? Nightmare on Elm Street?
Chud 2? Black Belt Jones?
Nightbreed?
What's a critter?
Oh, I've seen those things.
Flash? I guess we could wait a while before the destruction.
Yeah, and watch the movies.
And talk about them.
The Hail Ming Power Hour. Disobedience to Ming. For now.
You can find us at Legion Podcast.
You can find us on Facebook.
iTunes.
We're on Twitter. We're on Instagram.
At You know what? Just Google it for yourself.
Just Google it, you bastages.
Hail Ming.
Breaking 2? Electric Boogaloo?
Samurai Cop.
Army of Darkness?
Flashdance?
We might destroy the planet if it's Flashdance.
All right, I guess we can just jump right into our movie tonight, and it is Stridulum, also known as The Visitor in the USA from 1979.
There's something. I can't explain it, Raymond. There's something wrong inside, something terrible. No, she scares me, Raymond. There's something, I don't know. She's my baby, my little girl. It's not her fault.
Her name is Katie Collins. She'll be 8 years old.
Directed by Giulio Paradisi, written by Lucio Comici, who did the screenplay, Robert Mundy, who did the screenplay, Giulio Paradisi story, and Ovidio G. Asonitis also contributed to the story, apparently. And that doesn't sound like a name. That sounds like a really bad disease.
Maybe it's both. Who knows?
Maybe it's pronounced differently. Maybe the ass is silentless. Onitis. Even that kind of sounds like something bad. Yeah, anyway, starring our friend Mel Ferrer. Goddamn, I never get his name right. I practiced it earlier and I fucked it up now. But we've already covered him in 2 movies in this podcast, World, the Flesh, and the Devil, and Nightmare City as Dr. Walker. Glenn Ford as Detective Jake Durham. Lance Hendrickson in an earlier role as Raymond Armistead. John Huston, yes, famous director John Huston is in this as Jersey. Okay, I'm not even going to try to pronounce
the
that
visitor.
last name.
He's the visitor.
He's the visitor. Joanne Nail as Barbara Collins. Sam Peckinpah, yeah, that's Sam Peckinpah as Dr. Sam Collins. Shelley Winters as Jane Phillips, and Little Paige Connor as Katie Collins. And there's also a cameo by Kareem Abdul-Jabbar as well in the opening, if you're interested. But I'll pass it over to you there, Daniel, for the synopsis. Well, I look forward to hearing you put this one together.
I'm increasingly just throwing up my hands at these, so, There's an eternal spiritual war going on across the many ethereal planes of the multiverse. Paired in this eternal combat are a mysterious, malevolent force named Satine, unseen in this film, and Space Jesus himself, Franco Nero. This film portrays only the latest skirmish in this Manichean conflict, taking place in exotic Atlanta, Georgia, and with the primary antagonist being a young descendant of Salatine, Katie Collins, Paige Connor, who vacillates between being a reject from a Bad News Bear sequel and a Southern Belle knockoff of Damien from The Omen. It's that kind of movie. Young Katie's mother, Barbara Connor, Joanne Nail, not too long after an iconic performance in Switchblade Sisters, has left Katie's father, Sam fucking Peckinpah, in an attempt to climb the social ladder with a wealthy basketball team owner, Raymond, Lance Henriksen. He's pressuring her to marry him and give him a son, but she has continually demurred for Katie's entire life, it seems. Later we learn that the slimy Raymond is being used by a consortium of suited wealthy men sitting at a table, one of whom is apparently portrayed by right-wing radio host douchebag Neil Bortz, in an attempt to gain absolute power from the offspring produced by Raymond and Barbara's hypothetical mating. Into the situation comes an unearthly visitor, John fucking Huston, who approaches the family as a babysitter and whom Katie immediately recognizes as not of this earth. The two play a game of Pong, topical, I suppose, in 1979, and the visitor attempts to convince Katie to leave Earth with him. She's not convinced, however, and begins to pressure her mother to give Raymond a son in earnest, seemingly drunk on the sense of her own growing telekinetic powers, which we see alternately able to explode a basketball and fling 2 young ice skaters through plate glass. Also in this film, an accidental shooting that cripples Barbara, a police detective, Glenn fucking Ford, who is killed by birds, and an astrology-loving housekeeper who senses the evil inherent to Katie, a couple of pedophilia references, a cult of bald men engaging in strange rituals on the rooftop, a gratuitous neon Coca-Cola sign, a forced surgical pregnancy followed by an abortion, and did I mention Space Jesus with Franco Nero as himself? What else could you possibly need to know?
Yeah, this, I gotta say, this movie might be kind of the epitome of Italian filmmaking at the time.
Let's throw in a bunch of random references to other films. It's a little bit Close Encounters. It's all stuff, like, the film's from 1979. So it's all stuff from, like, 1975 to 1978, right? So a little bit of The Omen, a little bit of, Switchblade Sisters, taking actors from the Switchblade Sisters. We're going to do some Close Encounters. We're going to do some Bad News Bears. We're going to throw in a bunch of stuff, put it in a blender, and then do it in a bad Italian dubbing. And we're going to call it Stridulum.
Because it's part horror, it's part sci-fi. It's got elements of, like, the Fury and Carrie in it with the telekinesis stuff. Mm-hmm. It's got, like, the birds. Like, there's just birds all through this fucking film.
I very nearly had a line that I was trying to figure out how I was going to open the thing, and I very nearly wrote a line that was something like, Stridulum is the film that proves that when you don't have the budget for real special effects, but you do have money for a bird handler, you can still make a decent film. Basically, like, half the budget went to, like, an animal trainer to train birds to attack on command. There's some really good bird action in this film. If you're looking for a good bird, this is a film for you.
Oh, there's some.
It outdoes the birds.
There's some great bird action, and then there's some spectacularly bad whenever whenever they want to get a close-up of a bird and have it still on the camera.
There's a bird, like, stabbing a guy in the neck. Like, just, like, hovering by him, then Switchblade comes out, and then, like, stab in the neck. And that's in the film. And then there's also a bird like trying to open a handle to a door. So, so that's something that birds do in this film.
Yeah.
Magical, all-seeing, birds that are just controlled by people.
Yeah,
I love this film. I actually really enjoyed this film.
I do too.
It sounds like I'm shitting on it, but I did really have a good time with this.
You can't help but like this film. I mean, it's just so fucking batshit crazy, but it's just so earnestly batshit crazy that.
What I found was. Like watching it, I'm like, there's not really a lot. I mean, it feels really straightforward to me, because you say batshit, and it's just kind of like, and I summarize it in a way where there's just shit happening all the time. It kind of makes sense, like one scene leads to another, and you're kind of like following along. But then when you sit down and you start trying to summarize it, and you're like, holy shit, what? Like, look at all the there's so much happening.
It's the thing,
it doesn't necessarily add to anything. It's just kind of like there are whole sequences that just kind of in the detective sequence where there's this really cool detective sequence of Glenn fucking Ford in this movie, and then and then he's dead, and that's over.
A bird's pecking out his eyeball, and now he's going off the embankment, and his car turned over, even though it didn't when you saw the shot of the car stopping when it rolled over the embankment. Okay, that's fine.
It's over. Yep. They don't assign another detective. It's just like, well, he got killed by birds, so clearly they were innocent. Like that's that's just the way that police work works.
Although we do get the sort of kind of a common thread through a lot of Italian films. You do get the close-up shot of the bird pecking his eyeball out while he's in the car.
That felt a little faulty to me, So.
Yeah. This film, you're right. It does feel kind of batshit crazy, but I think the reason that is, of course, is because it does sort of jump around a lot. It just moves on from thing to thing really quickly. But if you do stick with it, it does end up making somewhat sense in the end, enough that you can actually follow the story, right? Yeah, I enjoy how both serious and silly this fucking thing is. I enjoy how John Huston here as the sort of galactic warrior, I guess, is what he's supposed to be. But no, it's just John Huston looking like
It's John Huston doing Obi-Wan Kenobi. I
was about to say, basically doing a less interested Alec Guinness in Star Wars. He's just sort of almost sleepwalking through this kind of.
I'm John fucking Huston. I can do this in my sleep, and he's probably the best thing in the film, really.
Did he just do this to earn money to help Orson Welles finish that film with him in it?
Maybe The Other Side of the Wind.
The Other Side of the Wind, because it's just weird seeing the cast they have for this, man. It's like, okay, well, Mel Ferrer, I understand that because he was acting in Italian stuff at the time. So, right. I mean, stick him in there. He's a good presence. Glenn Ford, kind of, he wasn't even really at the end of his career at this point. He was just, because I think he died in 2006 or something like that.
It kind of feels like maybe because Glenn Ford's in it, but he's only in this one little section and he's only on a couple of sets. It kind of feels like, yeah, we had Glenn Ford for 3 days, and we just kind of put a little subplot in for him. I mean, it does kind of feel assembled from other parts. So I don't. It's not like one of those cheesy shitty Corman ripoff films where it's literally 4 films that they just cut together into one.
Yeah,
pretended it was one film, but it does kind of feel like, oh yeah, we have Glenn Ford for a couple of days. Oh, make him a detective.
Yeah,
and then the little girl, she's just gonna pick up a gun and I mean, where does that plot go? Suddenly there's a the gun ends up in the box, and how does the gun end up in the box? Nobody can and then there's this repeated motif where the little girl is doing gymnastics while the mother is doing physical therapy, which is a really interesting visual motif that kind of goes nowhere. There's a lot of stuff that kind of shows up as interesting and then it's dropped.
But that's the neat thing about this though. It's because you would see this kind of thing in a lot of Italian pictures where plot points just go nowhere and it's actually to the detriment of the film. Mm-hmm. I feel like in this one it doesn't hurt it.
It's got a light enough touch. That it kind of it approaches an idea. It kind of it gives you just enough to go, yeah, we've dealt with that, and then moves on. One of my favorite elements of the film is actually the fact that like John Huston shows up. He's like, I'm the babysitter, and they just kind of accept it. Oh, okay, sure, yeah. Old man showing up to babysit our 8-year-old daughter. Yeah, I have no, like, we're going to joke later about how, oh, maybe he's a pedophile. Oh, I think you're a cripple-phile, right? Shanna made me rewind it. Like, literally, hold on. Did we just see that?
Yeah.
Yes, we did. She just did a cripple reference. Yeah, he just shows up, and then the little girl, there's no, like, sense of, like, oh, they have to reveal themselves to each other as like fellow aliens or whatever. It's just like she's like, oh yeah, you're an alien, you got your thing going on, and he's like, then they're playing Pong and just chatting. Like, yeah. I really love like that aspect to it. Like, it does not waste time with this stuff at all.
Yeah, like there's this implied, like, I guess just underneath there's this, I notice you, like I realize that there's some sort of connection there, because Katie isn't so much an alien as she's like, so this evil presence, this Satine or whatever, very thinly Satan kind of reference. Right. Space Jesus, Franco Nero tells us in the beginning that he was destroyed, but he passed his seed on to like humans or whatever. So it's basically his genetic code being propagated by this evil Illuminati of old white men around a boardroom.
There's this sense, and this is kind of where, like, I don't blame the film for this, because it's so not that kind of film, but it is kind of like, there's a really interesting idea that, like, these kind of wealthy industrialist capitalist assholes are basically like, they even say like absolute power corrupts absolutely, and we need that absolute power. Like, they're literally like, that's the goal. Like, it's very blatant that like we just want this power, which is great. I don't get the sense that these guys have any particular like power over anything. They're just people who are like seeking this power, and so they're just kind of working with this. They just kind of have recognized that this thing exists, and are just trying to manipulate the world into kind of giving them what they want. I really like that aspect to it. They've even got the one black guy who's like the butler, the servant.
Okay, let's talk about every black character in this film for a second, okay?
Let's. I was wondering if we were going to get here, so yes.
Every one of them's a magic Negro.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. So you got the servant. Who I wanted to call him Putney Swope. I know that isn't quite like accurate because he's a servant and not actually on the board, but I kept wanting to call him Putney Swope. And then you got the two guys in the car who find the wheelchair and basically come in to swoop in and save the day. And they have, I know it's supposed to be Atlanta, and it actually is Atlanta. I mean, it's very clearly shown. Even adjusting for the fact that it's 1979, it borders right on the edge of that like caricature, minstrel kind of character.
Oh, it's almost Song of the South level right there.
It's almost. I mean, they're almost saying like massa. Yeah. Like it's not quite to that degree.
We ain't be fooling with these crazy white people. God damn.
It's almost as bad as Eddie Murphy in Life.
And of course, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar at the beginning there. He senses the evil presence in Katie, and the whole idea here is that John Huston is trying to extract the evil presence from her and make her good again, apparently, is kind of the thing. Although he goes about it in a very roundabout way, He's basically letting Katie abuse her mother, like, throughout the entire film. Like, right. A good example of where plot points just sort of drop all of a sudden is, like, in one scene, you'll see her pushing her mother through a fucking fish tank, and then the next scene is like, yeah, she survived. Whatever.
I legitimately, after that scene, because like she pushes her mom through a fish tank, and then like she's like cackling afterwards.
Yeah.
And then it cuts to like Katie being in therapy, and like the mother is like fine except for she's in the wheelchair. And I was literally on this level like, are we supposed to think everything like between here was a dream? like that this is some psychosis that this little girl's having, because it's so out of left field that
I just think it was written that way. I just think we'll put this scene
we'll put it to the you can put people through a plate glass and it doesn't, like, they just kind of get up from that afterwards,
Hey, these are Italians writing American characters. This is what Americans do, it's like,
Americans do. They just throw each other through plate glass. We've seen westerns.
Yeah, their children are uppity. Their children are always going around calling old men child molesters and
and say shove it up your ass. It's a very like I was kind of on board with the little girl at that point. I'm kind of like, fuck off, cop. Like, I'm not answering your questions.
Well, in a modern context, I mean, that really does work, doesn't it? It's like, this is some old white guy comes up to me in a car who I've never met before, and he's like, I want to talk to you, Katie, and it's like, get the fuck away from me.
He literally, like, catches her at the bus stop, you know, and it's like, I wanted to get to her when your mom wasn't around. And it's like, what a year, child molester. She calls him a child molester like 5 times. And then tells her to go fuck yourself, and, I'm like, I'm totally down with this girl, Fuck the police, man. Do it. And then, no, she turns out she's evil. She's unremittingly evil. Until she goes until some birds peck at her, and then she goes to the other dimension, and then she's fine again. I mean, this does kind of draw very much from that, like, late 70s, like, kind of astrology, crystal power, kind of flower child convergence with, like, sci-fi. It's very much on that kind of, like, Omni magazine and, like, 10 years out from Chariots of the Gods. And, I mean, obviously 2001: A Space Odyssey was a film that was, like, in the back of the minds of the people making this. I mean, and that sort of thing. So, just on that kind of serious level, there are some kind of interesting kind of big picture ideas that were kind of going on in the background, and this definitely fits into this culture. I kept thinking of Beyond the Black Rainbow when I was watching this. I mean, because that's a film that's hearkening back to the same general era of filmmaking. And for better or for worse, we can kind of talk about that. I think I'd be interested in getting your thoughts about, how this film actually of that era compares to Beyond the Black Rainbow.
With Beyond the Black Rainbow, of course, part of it is kind of a commentary on this sort of film back then as well. I mean, it's got that meta quality to it that this doesn't. This is just purely bold-face, honest filmmaking, and they're just really, we're ripping this off, we're ripping that off. We're not. There's no. I don't think there's necessarily all that much deeper meaning to a lot of the stuff you see in this film. I think a lot of it's just, it's just cobbled together, and they're not really thinking about it too much. I mean, when you think about that story with Franco Nero at the beginning and then the bookend at the end, it just feels like they got Franco Nero in for a day, and they just had him do these scenes with John Huston just to try to give some sort of story to the, like, some sort of overall meaning.
It's basically like, put a Jesus wig on him and have him, like, hang out with a bunch of bald kids, and that's as far as we go.
They're all like Avatar: The Last Airbender or some bullshit, right?
And then Katie shows up at the end and like, all the bad stuff has been taken out of her or something. I mean, I'm sure you could probably kind of pull out some themes here. There are some visual motifs. There's some stuff with like light and shadow. In terms of like when the aliens come, when they to kind of take John Huston and Katie away. There's this kind of thing going on where it's a bunch of like kind of lights on the ground, and then the kind of lights in the sky, and they all merge as one, and the different patterns there. The cult members on the roof are playing games with shadow, and they're kind of all like they're almost miming with
they're behind those screens. Like, why are they even doing that? Like,
why do they even exist? They do nothing in the film. Like
they're just a bunch of
sequence. The film even rips off Lady from Shanghai. It literally rips off an Orson Welles film. Like from like 50 years earlier or 40 years earlier.
They're just like space Buddhists in tracksuits standing around, and they're not doing anything.
And that's the point. They're space Buddhists in tracksuits, and that's why they're there. I really thought we were going to get like this kind of like sequence at the end where there was going to be some battle,
really.
And then the space Buddhists are going to like do something, or they're going to be like enforcers or shock troops, or maybe there's going to be some. I mean, at first I was kind of like, maybe there's some moral ambiguity about like the John Huston character, like maybe because I was kind of on the little girl's side at first, you know, I was kind of like, oh, and maybe she's not as evil as they kind of make her sound, and maybe there's like some, you know, other thing going on. No. This is completely really like straightforwardly a thing, but I kind of thought maybe she was going to have to go against the cult members, sort of thing. Yeah, and especially since she has telekinetic powers, you'd think like she'd use them a little bit more. Yeah. You know, you're kind of hoping like, yeah, space monks against, you know, Firestarter girl. Yeah, let's do it.
I mean, you know, like think of an ending where she's maybe trapped in their building or whatever, and she's running around through the hallways, and these space Buddhists are jumping out at her, and she's using her powers to like push them down the hallway into a wall or some shit.
Can we get the Wachowski siblings on this? Like, I would watch this film. Like, it'd be better than the fucking Matrix sequels.
Oh, fuck yeah, it'd be way better than Matrix. I think maybe the only really bit of depth you can probably pull from this, and I don't think it was necessarily intentional, but there seems to be like a natural, spiritual pureness of nature kind of thing that the aliens represent against fakeness and, you know, just man-made bullshit. Like the bad guys are the corporate industrialists who, you know, only believe in money and greed and power. The good guys are presented as basically space Buddhists who are all enlightened and are at one with the natural whatever of the universe vibe kind of bullshit.
There's also a contrast between the Sam Peckinpah character and Lance Henriksen's character, right? Where, you know, Sam Peckinpah is... He's doing the white savior thing, but okay, he's... you know what I'm going to say? If you are a doctor servicing poor black communities in Atlanta in 1979, you're allowed to be a bit of a white savior. I'm not a black man, but I will, like, just personally, I'm not going to complain about that. You're allowed to do that. If you're actively putting your time and your money where your mouth is, like, that's what he's doing. You know, it's definitely, like, kind of implied, if that outright stated, that she left this guy to go and like kind of be a social climber with the dude who owns a basketball team apparently, and that's his job. Is I own a basketball team. Okay, good for you. Lance
you just recently bought a basketball team, and by the way, you're evil.
Yeah, you know, and he's toting up to the board members and the capitalists, you know, sort of thing. There is that element. There is that kind of like, you know, where, you know, if Barbara had not done that, if she had not kind of been seduced by that kind of social climbing aspect, then maybe Katie would have gotten a kind of better sense of morality, you know, from her parents, sort of thing. You can read that into the film. I think it is something that's it seems pretty clearly intended by the filmmakers, but it's also kind of like such a tiny part of the film, and it's hard to really give them too much credit for it.
And I think it also, where they're using birds as a sort of a motif throughout the entire film, you notice they kind of pit like real birds against fake ones. Like there's two instances of fake birds here. There's the one that's bought as a present for Katie, disappears and gets replaced by the gun, which ends up, you know, her poor mother who just goes through the fucking ringer throughout this whole entire film.
In my notes, I did say, you know, Glenn Ford has no understanding of chain of evidence either, because there's no evidence bag, there's no gloves, it's just, oh yeah, you pick it up, you just put it in the side of your car, you put it in your glove box.
He doesn't even fucking get a warrant. He breaks into the fucking house and steals the toy bird.
It's really a commentary on 70s police work in Atlanta. You know, it's real. You know, we're just gonna frame a black guy for this, so you know, don't worry about
it. But then also you get
the two guys in the car. They were gonna get framed for it, and the fact that the Glenn Ford character died. That's why they're still around, and then they end up saving the girl from Switchblade Sisters.
Yeah,
That's the meaning of the film, ultimately. You know, it's all about police misconduct, man. That's it.
Yeah, but I mean, also Shelley Winter's character has that cage with the fake mechanical birds in it or whatever. Mm-hmm. So you know, I don't know what necessarily the meaning is there, but I'm pretty sure there was at least some sort of intended meaning there. And then it's also kind of neat where, if you notice, like at the end where the birds come down and save Barbara Collins, who is about to be like strangled to death by Lance Hendrickson and Katie.
That's a pretty impressive sequence. I thought the garroting stuff, I mean, it's pretty cleverly executed. I was I'm not saying I'm a fan of like choking her, but I thought it was a really effectively done little sequence in the middle of a film like that.
The fact that it lingers on a bit too, it's like the way it's presented. You look at that garrote and the way he's got it set up. You think her head's going to be cut off as soon as it goes down she gets down to the bottom of the stairs, right?
I actually thought the sequence was going to go on longer. I mean, I thought he was basically going to it wouldn't be difficult to imagine a sequence where basically he's like got her there, he's got her completely helpless, and says like, okay, I'm going to impregnate you now. Like, this is what's going to happen.
Well, he's presented as being basically impotent, I think, because he doesn't get the job done. I mean, she becomes impregnated because of the abduction on the highway.
Right. The surgery, the forced, the medical rape.
And I think there's also kind of an implied contrast with the aliens there as well. Like, you get the alien light show at the top of the roof with the real aliens, and that's all 2000 or not 2001. In Close Encounters of the Third Kind, you get that as well with the truck, but it's false. It's not aliens. It's just humans in biohazard suits impregnating her with whatever they have available.
I keep looking at that truck and going like, man, they're shooting this like a flying saucer. I mean, it's very overt. That's
But
the shortest episode yet. I'm kind of like, man, I'm kind of done. I should go through my notes real quick.
It's hard to say anything other than watch this fucking movie because it's actually really goddamn entertaining, and I think a lot of the sequences end up working so well is because there's actually some money behind this. Like it was an $800,000 budget, which is pretty good for an Italian film at this point.
I do have a couple of thoughts actually. What did you think of the little girl's performance?
I thought she was really good.
I thought she was terrible and awesome at the same time. Like, the accent is atrocious.
Mm-hmm.
She's really entertaining.
Yeah, that's the thing. It works because it's a really bizarre Italian film where the performances don't necessarily matter at all. Like, the more outlandish, probably the better overall. I mean, Franco Nero is also like really weird in this, and the way he pronounces stuff is weird in this. Like, he's speaking English, and at one point he's explaining the story of Satine, and he's like, Satine was a mutant, or like what the fuck, dude? Mutant. Just say mutant. Just say it. But yeah, actually, I thought Paige Connor was pretty good. I mean, she was just obviously not a great child actress or anything like that, but I think she was pretty game, and she also had to contend with Shelley Winters, who apparently slapped her around like method on set. So good for her. I thought she was all right.
What did you think of? Sorry, I'm just going to ask you some questions because I actually did some thoughts about the kind of social realism aspect in terms of like the way it's shot. And I know it's kind of low budget Italian, so it's just going to look like this, but it kind of looks like an after school special.
Some of it does, yeah.
And so, like, you're kind of combining this, like, big picture, space odyssey, Omni magazine, aliens coming down sort of thing. And you're combining it with this, like, acting and shooting style and everything that's just very much out of, like, don't do drugs, kids, like, sort of thing. How did that strike you?
It didn't bother me too much. I liked it all right. I mean, I was kind of expecting it to sort of look like this because I was saying, okay, they have their obvious money shots. Like they have the big opening at the basketball game, and that's fairly cinematic and looks pretty good. And then it's like, okay, I know a lot of this stuff's going to be indoors, or it's going to be at a really kind of lame outdoors location that doesn't look all that impressive. Like even the stuff on the highway where the detective is driving, even that doesn't look particularly great.
I mean, for a like tiny budget little Italian movie, I was actually fairly impressed with the the sequences on the highway. I thought all the action sequences looked low budget but decent. I mean, in particular, the ice skating sequence, which is way more intense than this film deserves in some ways. Like I was kind of like, man, they really this is half the budget is spent right here in this ice skating stuff.
Although it was weird, I didn't get why all these. It was almost like implied that these guys were like interested in her, almost like and they were clearly all like 10 years older.
She was being a shithead towards them, right? Like she was.
Okay.
She like provoked them because she's a shithead.
Yeah.
And then they kind of come after her. And then, like, that justifies, like, what she does to them at the end because they're kind of, coming after him. I fully expected somebody's finger to get cut off by an ice skate. Like, I was like, this is not going to end well. This is going to end with, like, some horrifying, bloody violence. It isn't that kind of film, but, I mean, it was very much kind of, that's where my headspace was in terms of, like, them. The skating sequence I thought was not like a brilliant sequence, but I thought it was pretty intense and
it had good energy to it. I think my favorite was, and it's kind of frustrating at the same time because this is another one of those sequences where something big seems to be happening and then it just completely gets dropped and kind of forgotten about by the time they move to the next thing, is where she follows John Huston into the House of Mirrors or whatever.
Yeah, the lady from Shanghai sequence, yeah.
Mm-hmm, yeah, and I thought that was done really well. It looked pretty good. Yeah. And then...
I mean, you're right. They do have their handful of set pieces that are really well executed. Mm-hmm. And then it's just kind of connected with stuff that, it's fine. It's shoe leather. It gets you from one place to another.
Okay, I have a question. Can a paraplegic technically drive?
With the appropriate hand shifters and stuff,
okay, I didn't realize if she maybe had that or not because I was just watching this and I was like,
I don't think they made that. I don't think they did it in this film, but yes, people you can drive, and it was true even in the late 70s. Like you could get the things.
Because I was watching.
I remember Saved. How Macaulay Culkin's character, he has the Jewish girl, but the Jewish girl. That's as far as I go on remembering the names of anybody in that film. Because there's Macaulay Culkin and then the Jewish girl.
Yeah, and then what bitchy Christian Mandy Moore?
Yeah,
so, yeah,
who's actually pretty good. And Jenna Malone, who was in Inherent Vice, which is a couple weeks ago.
Right.
Yeah, she's the lead in that.
Mm. But I kind of doubt they were thinking about cars for paraplegics that were drivable. I just kind of think it was something they forgot about because I was just watching. It was like, you're just going with it. She's driving her home. Wait, how the fuck is she driving her home?
There's also the thing where, and they don't really explore this in the film, but there is this kind of thing where not everyone who has had that kind of spinal injury is completely disabled from below the waist.
Yeah,
she could be in a wheelchair and be overtly disabled and still have enough feeling and motion in her feet to be able to drive.
Yeah.
So
it just feels like
I definitely noticed it. It didn't kill the movie for me, because if that's your sticking point with this film.
Well, yeah, I personally don't have any sticking points. Even the flaws in it, I don't mind because it just works so well as it flows along. There's a charm to it. Like I said before, budget $800,000, pretty decent budget for a film like this from an Italian production. I guess they must have had some American money in this too, right? And
they got John Huston.
Yeah, they got John Huston.
Lynn Ford.
And Sam Peckinpah, although not quite Sam Peckinpah because his voice is dubbed by someone who is definitely not Sam Peckinpah.
Oh, really? I did not notice that.
Yeah. It does look pretty good, but if you look closely, you do see sort of the rough edges. At one point, you see the skateboard under Joanne Neal's character when she's being pulled by the hair across the floor there by Katie. Yeah. You see little things like that, and of course the fake birds. The ones that are obviously just dangling on strings with.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. One other thing I thought was pretty intense was her being dragged up the steps by Katie. There were quite a few sequences where I'm like, that's fairly intense for a film like this. I really wish it had done more. Once it disables Barbara, the only reason to do it is just it makes her helpless and. And I was really expecting them to do something interesting in terms of really drive this really big kind of thriller tension moment. And they never quite get there with the psychology.
Well, what if they had done this what's the movie? Whatever Happened to Baby Jane? Is that the one where she's taking care of her sister and she's a has-been actress?
Oh, right.
The other one's and she's paralyzed. What if they had done that with this film, where the mother's paralyzed and most of the film takes place in the actual house, and it's just a mind game between the little girl and her, and
Or like Lance Henriksen. Like, it could totally be like, and then he starts like gaslighting her. I mean,
yeah,
you know, it's funny, like there's enough interesting stuff in this that it's very easy to start rewriting it, you know?
Yeah.
It doesn't even mean I don't like the film, but it is kind of like, you know, man, it's kind of a missed opportunity to some degree, you know, where you had this, you know.
I feel kind of dirty saying it, but I almost want a remake of this where they like explore some of this stuff more, but at the same time, I don't, because I love this film. It's fucking fantastic.
Well, you remake it today, and it's just it's either gonna be like generic, shitty horror film, or it'll be kind of what's that Nicole Kidman the Invasion of the Body Snatchers remake? You remember?
Yeah,
I saw a bit of that on TV the other day. Like a friend of mine was like likes the film, you know. And it's like put it on, and I was like, "Wow, like man, this I've never seen it before." But I'm like, "Man, this is really shitty." But you can't say that to your friend. You're just like, "Okay, yeah."
Yeah, let's make the alien invaders a disease. Oh, fuck.
Yeah, I didn't watch far enough to even get that far. I'm just kind of like, man. But I was kind of watching it. I knew watching this film. I'm like, I recognize the actress from somewhere, and I had to look it up. Oh fuck, Switchblade Sisters, of course.
Yeah.
Like, she's great in that.
Yeah. I think one thing I do want to really mention while we're I think we're kind of wrapping up here, but the soundtrack by Franco Nero, I just love how the main theme starts coming on every time John Huston shows up. Like, it's almost like a counterpoint to just how bored and sleepy he looks. It's like, it's John Huston! Ba-ba!
I just love that it's like the hero music like shows up and it's like John Huston kind of walking in. I don't even think he looks bored. I just think he looks tired. You know, it's just like, man,
I keep expecting the yawn. Like,
I've been fighting the forces of darkness for 10,000 years. Oh, you know, but I thought I actually liked his performance. Like I was not like kind of quite on that. Like, yeah, he's kind of sleepwalking through this. I mean, he is. He's kind of doing it for the money, but he sort of gets like there's a weariness I think I get for it, and I kind of liked his weariness to it. You know, this isn't quite a Robert Mitchum in The Big Sleep. You know,
yeah, the Big
Sleep. It's not. It doesn't feel quite that just completely I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, no, it's not Mitchum, I don't give a shit. It's just
he's a little bit bored, but he still gives a fuck. So
yeah,
I liked him in the film, you know. So.
When this first came out in the USA as The Visitor, there was 18 minutes cut from it. I know the Sam Peckinpah stuff was chopped down so much that if you didn't read the credits, you wouldn't know Sam Peckinpah was in this at all, because I think mostly what you saw was like the shot from his back when he was talking to her in the office or whatever, and that was about it.
Did they cut the abortion out of it?
I think they do. I don't have a...
In 1979 in America, I would totally believe that they basically... there's a white guy like, you know... Let's cut out all the black people and the abortion and the Italian Jesus. Yeah, no, I totally let's cut those elements of the film. Yes, I believe it completely.
But apparently, it was a big enough cut where it made it more like one of those Italian films I was talking about, where they just have so much cut out of it and it's so pieced together that it just doesn't make any sense at all and doesn't work at all. You can get this from Drafthouse Films right now. If you go to drafthousefilms.com, you can get a Blu-ray DVD plus a digital download, or you can get the same thing with a poster. I guess there's a couple different packages you can buy for this, and fairly cheap price, and you can actually just rent it online and stream it as well from there too. So and it's the restored uncut version and all that, so very, very cool.
We might have damned this with faint praise, but it really is worth it's worth sitting through. I mean, if you can get it for a few dollars and have a Saturday afternoon to watch this is worth a watch.
And don't be also if you see its rating on Rotten Tomatoes, don't be cynical and turned off by the fact that it's got 100% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes right now.
Somebody go give it a shitty review just so it doesn't have 100% and people will. Yeah.
But I think Daniel, I think we're both in agreement here that this is definitely worth checking out. It's a lot of fun, and now that it's uncut, you get to see it in all of its glory.
Right.
So
I mean, there's nothing really any deeper than. I mean, it is just kind of all the visuals. It is entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I'll ever like revisit this. I don't know that this is something that I'm ever going to be like, yeah, no, I want to sit down and watch Stridulum again. But it was fun to watch, and I didn't have any problem kind of just getting through the entire thing, in one go, basically. So, and I was taking notes because I was looked at the way I do these plot summaries now is I look at the Wikipedia page and figure out how detailed it is. And if it's not that detailed, and this one wasn't, I know I have to at least kind of know the basic sequence of how things happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't have my notebook, so I literally took notes on Post-it notes. So I have 12 Post-it notes with just they're all numbered, so I know what order things happen in.
Nice.
And then when I was putting together the thing, I basically just threw it all away and went, I kind of know what happens in this film. I literally just glanced at it and went oh, the pedophilia jokes. Yeah, we'll just throw that in.
All right. So tell everyone about the multitude of podcasts you have now going on, Daniel.
I have so many fucking podcasts. You can listen to me on this podcast, They Must Be Destroyed on Site. If you're a masochist, you can do that. But you can find all of my stuff at oispaceman.com. That's oispaceman.com, all one word. We started out as a Doctor Who podcast, and now we're doing both Firefly and Red Dwarf. Both kind of science fiction TV shows, and we're branching out. We're doing all kinds of stuff. So kind of keep checking back. We also have our own Facebook group. If you aren't getting enough great stuff in the wonderful They Must Be Destroyed on Site Facebook group, you can come join the Always Spaceman Facebook group.
Yep.
We've got a lot of lefty political types talking about science fiction over there, and it's a great time. So check it out.
So, of course, the trailer at the end will tell you where to go to find all our stuff and get in contact with us. And always want feedback. We always want to hear from you guys. Even if you have nothing particularly intelligent to say, just give us feedback and we'll read it. We're pretty good that way. So,
we never have anything intelligent to say. So
yeah, so join the fucking club already. But so next week is going to be an intermission episode, although it's going to be a weird one because it's actually going to have both of us on it. We're going to be recording that right after this, a little behind the scenes magic there for you guys. That's how we do things around here.
I'm going to be out of town next weekend most likely, and so I said, hey, let's just record a little quickie something, which might end up being longer than this podcast, ironically. So we'll find out. But we're going to record that right after this, and so you'll get to hear that next week.
And then after that, we're probably going to be going for Slither. And then we decided to expand the sci-fi thing for one more episode. And we're going to be doing something we were talking about doing for a while, a couple sequels of famous movies. We're going to do RoboCop 2 and Predator 2 and take a little look at those. So that will round out our little sci-fi break before we jump into the sex comedies. So that should be fun.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a good time. I'm looking forward to all that.
Yeah, okay. So thank you all for listening. Thank you for joining me again, Daniel, and we'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Thank you for listening to They Must Be Destroyed on Sight. For past episodes, links to the host's other stuff, and links to podcasts and websites of similar interest, please visit us at tmbdos.podbean.com. There you can also find links to us at iTunes and YouTube, as well as our Facebook group link, which is the best way to get in touch with us. We welcome all comments, questions, movie review suggestions, and criticisms, and we do our best to respond to everyone. You can also find us at Daniel's recently launched oispaceman.com, where you can find his sci-fi themed podcasts about Doctor Who and Red Dwarf. Thank you. Drive through.